Hello, Manchester, Auburn, Hooksett. This is the best show on MCTV, the most dangerous show on MCTV.
Most dangerous hour on public television, anywhere, anyhow.
And it's the Progress Report. And here we are, almost at the middle of October of 2017. You know, it doesn't seem like fall at all.
70 degrees.
Yeah, it's coming. It's not, it's going to get here.
I spent the weekend in D.C. I may talk about that later in the show. It was bloody awful down there. It was so hot and humid. I felt like I might have been in Panama. I mean, walk 2 blocks and you're soaking in sweat. It was unbelievable. So I'm really glad to be back in the Granite State and at least see some of the leaves are turning. Seems like very late this year for peak foliage, I tell you.
Yeah, it's still
really.
up
It's not
near the lakes. It's not.
It's
down
not
here
even peak yet, and here it is. We're past Columbus Day, but we have more important things to get to, as we always do in the Progress Report. And let me start out by saying, as always, we urge your participation, 640-3091.
2 lines, no waiting.
2 lines, no wait. Love to have your participation. And we are having 2 outstanding public servants and candidates for election for office here in the municipal elections coming up on November 7th, right here in the great city of Manchester. And nobody were more ever pleased to have be on our show, which he has many times. Alderman Pat Long, Ward 3. Facing a significant challenge this year, but he's done so much for the city in so many areas that we are happy to say we're glad to have him with us and tell us about, we can talk about some of what he's accomplished and some of what he hopes to accomplish. And he's also a state rep and the chairman of the Manchester delegation, which is by numbers the most important delegation because Manchester is, of course, the largest city we have in our state, and we do still have proportional representation. Pat?
You bet. Bob, how are you?
Glad to have you here.
Glad to be here.
I mean, it's short notice, but here you are, looking terrific.
Thank you.
But before we start, you had the POTUS report?
Well, yeah, it's been. I hope I'm using the word right. It's been a fortnight since I've been on the show, Bob.
It
was
has.
over 2 weeks, but it's great to be back. And
it's great to have you back.
It's been hectic when you're coming back off of vacation. Of course, you have 2 weeks of work to do in 1 week, and so I don't have a fully prepared POTUS report. But I am going to tap into some of the headlines that have been actually lingering a little bit. The headline I'm going to talk about is a couple weeks old, but it seems to have shaken loose a dialogue that seems to be growing and growing and a rumbling. And a very quick POTUS report on the Progress Report, and it goes like this. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson has been quoted as saying that Donald Trump is a moron. Donald Trump, who happens to be technically the President of the United States, has denied this. We report. You decide. And that's the POTUS report on the Progress Report for this week.
That's very cryptic.
And
Mr. Farley.
there's much more at the later at the end of the show.
Later
we'll have a little time to
we
explore a little bit more
go
about
on.
that.
Okay. With that very cryptic POTUS report on the Progress Report, let's turn it over to Alderman Pat Long and State Representative Pat Long, one and the same, right here with us.
Thank you, Bob.
Pat, what's the big issues today?
Yeah, the big
and what are you
issue
interested in?
is, in the Manchester Ink Link and in the Union Leader, there was a plan put forward for a 30-60-90 plan, they're calling it, where everybody who gets Narcan would serve 30 days in Hillsborough County for the first Narcan, 60 days for the second, and 90 days for the third. I'm just here to say that is absolutely absurd.
Well, it's
not
entirely
thought
contrary
out,
to the whole
not
idea of
thought
the
out.
drug court we've recently approved.
Well,
isn't it?
not only that, the reason we got here was because people were going to jail.
We're being incarcerated
So we're
for drug
trying
offenses.
something different because that didn't work. So
Where's the proposal come from?
It's coming from candidate for Alderman in Ward 2, O'Sullivan, which Alderman Lavassa brought that forward probably 2 or 3 months ago at a board meeting. Obviously not thought out. First of all, anybody has an idea, I'll hear it. I'll open the idea. But this is not even an idea. There's not a plan prepared. I have a plan called the Whole Family Opiate Management Plan,
Talk about that a little
which is a right now we have several entities in the city of Manchester that are touching this subject. Before I get on that, though, I want to say I spoke with Chief Goonan on this. So far this year, there were 675 people Narcan. 675.
And this is what
Of the
day?
of the 675, 13 refused the service. Okay, so they're not, I mean, this 30,
So
60,
what
and
you're saying
90
is they're
plan.
accepting, the
This-
people
this-
are accepting the service that's offered to them.
That's correct.
You get the
That's
Narcan,
correct.
we're going to wrap a blanket around you, and we're going to take care of
Right.
you if you
So-
want it.
so-
And they're accepting this.
So the words of they get Narcan and released, that's not the case. 13 people out of 675, that is the case.
And it has to be voluntary.
No, absolutely.
You know,
You could
I mean,
refuse. You get
legally it has
Narcan,
to
you
be
get
vol-
up, you could say, no, I'm all set. Let me go. So they are seeking services. I mean, those are desperate times when somebody gets Narcan.
Wow.
So I can understand that. I didn't think it was less than 1%.
so
I was
over
thinking maybe
650 of these
I was
people
thinking
are-
maybe 5% or 10% of them refuse treatment. Refuse help. But it's 13 of them. I was blown away by that number.
Wow.
So
Out of 600 and something?
out of 675. So we have 675 spending some time, 30 days into Hillsborough County.
And none of them voluntarily going into the rehab services because they'd have been taken out of that option and put behind bars.
Exactly. Yeah, so that's the case. We wouldn't be offering this. We'd be offering jail time for 30 days. Let them sit for 30 days, 60 days, or 90 days. We've already been through that. That hasn't worked. Why do we want to go back to that?
That goes back to the 80s and 90s. I mean, that
Right.
theory.
Yeah, I talked to Superintendent Dion at Hillsborough County House of Correction, who says his capacity is in the 700s. He's got 470-something inmates now, so he'd be prepared to take in 250. He'll be maxed out, okay? So with this plan, we need to expand our jail because, 250 is going to be,
We'll
what,
get there real
2
fast.
months?
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll get there real fast. So we have to expand our jail. And this plan is under the guise of saving taxes. I don't know who pays for Hillsborough County. That's a free entity, I guess. Manchester pays Hillsborough County's our share in taxes to
Sure
Hillsborough
we do.
County.
Of course we do.
So we'd have to expand the jail. Superintendent Dion told me that you would have to get, if you want these people to be treated, we would have to hire more staff for treatment. Right now, they're working
Within
with
the jail,
Keystone.
within the House of
Hillsborough
Correction.
County. Right now, they're working with Keystone out of Nashua because we have the SATCO program, Bob. And there's only like 6 people in that right now. Where, let's say I'm sentenced to 9 months. For 2 months, I get I get an intense treatment program for 2 months while I'm incarcerated. After 2 months, I get an ankle bracelet on, and I'm sent home for my remaining 7 months where I check in every day. And that's what we're looking, that's what's happening at the lower level now. In the superior courts, it's the chronic people that are involved with the system. So we figured with Hillsborough County, why not try to get somebody at the beginning? It may work better. We don't have enough numbers yet to know whether or not that would work. But there are people that started in June or July, I believe, and people are working on that now at the local level. So this 30, 60, and 90 is just, it's ludicrous.
How do you
It's
gauge
just
support for
ludicrous.
that? I mean, that strikes me as kind of going a little bit backwards to the theories that we were using, that we were going to arrest our way out of this problem, which has demonstrably
which our
not
chief,
worked.
among others, has said is not going to
You
work.
can't
No,
do
that's
it.
right, that's right.
But it also, I mean, it strikes me as kind of a divisive thing that, these people kind of deserve punishment as opposed to help.
Right. Well, or punishment is gonna scare them straight.
Yeah.
Now we know scared
Which
straight doesn't
doesn't
work.
work. We know
yeah,
that
so
doesn't
we know that doesn't work. And
This
like I
addiction
said,
is too
we've already
powerful
done
for that.
this. We've already done the jail time, and that didn't work. That's why we came up with these alternatives. And there's people going around saying that we're sitting on our laurels as Manchester government. There isn't a day that goes by where I don't think about substance use disorder. There's not a day that goes by where I don't talk to somebody who's in the field. I just met with a Jesse Clinton, I believe his name is, from Zeal. ministry. He has a list of 250 kids that he doesn't see them all at once, but they've gone through he has an alternative program, which he's calling Preventive, which he does recordings, they do karaoke, the kids love that. It's right at the old police station where they do that. I met with him yesterday morning, and we had a great conversation on prevention. The city of Manchester has worked hard to get Safe Station up and running. Safe Station is working. If you think for a minute that you're surprised at this 2,100 or 2,200 number of people getting Narcan, what did you think? Did you think there were only 200 people in this city that have an issue, a substance use disorder? We knew that these numbers were high. So that's why we need a program where now that we have treatment available in the city of Manchester, anybody can get help. Anybody, whether you have insurance or not. So that's clear.
There's been a
That's
very intense effort
major,
to get these up and running,
that's
get
right.
them up, stood
And
them
that's
up
a major,
into locations.
that is
and-
major progress.
Yep.
Okay, now what we need to do is get the treatment part of it. I mean, get the recovery part of it. How do we keep people going to recovery? This is an insidious disease. This is a disease where it's about planting seeds. People get it the first time, people get it three times.
Relapse is part of recovery.
Exactly.
That's a true statement.
It doesn't have to be, but a high majority is, and that's okay. As long as you got that planted in your head that, you know what, I can stop. And eventually people do. So now we need to line up our treatment. We have Hope for New Hampshire Recovery that does treatment. Who else does, not treatment, but recovery? Who else does recovery? There's a lot of entities in Manchester that do recovery.
Really?
Are they coordinated? Are they collaborating? That's what needs to happen in that collaboration. We need, because if you take 2,000 people and you get them all treatment, I'm guessing you're going to get at least 100 people that are going to get it. Okay, so there's 100 people. Now you have 1,900 you're going to work on. What's the next step? And that's something that we haven't done and something that we need to do. We need to start looking at recovery. How do we impose that? And more importantly, we need to start on prevention. We need to start. How many children are currently witnessing their loved ones suffering through this?
I was heartbroken to read the story about the old New England Patriots former player who went to Central High School and spoke
Right.
about his
Yep.
own addiction
Yeah.
problems.
Yep.
And a young girl ran out of the assembly in tears, and we can only imagine why.
Right.
And he scolded that school when they laughed at her for that.
Right.
And I think that message was probably more powerful than the one that he intended to give
No,
when he walked in.
and absolutely. And
You've
there's
got to take care of these
and
people.
there's a
You can't be
lot of
laughing at them.
entities, Mike. There's a lot of entities in the city of Manchester that are doing prevention. This Jess Clinton from the Zeal Ministry, he's doing prevention. I didn't know about
Well,
that.
the focus has been in the crisis. We've been in crisis. The focus has been in the overdose on the street, and we've been building out from that. We have the what we've stood up recently, but now you're talking about the back end and the front end.
No, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Well, I mean, you guys will remember the Indian that with the tear in his eye,
Yeah.
right? Did that happen overnight? I remember going to Hampton Beach when I was 16 years old.
Oh,
We used to, whoever paid the most got the ride in the back of the truck with a tarp filled with water. And I would sit in the back of the truck with the tarp full of water on 101 going to the beach. And you used to be able to throw your McDonald's bag out the window. That was nothing. So McDonald's bags, garbage would be flying out the window, and it was not a big deal. And that was this.
It had to change people's minds.
This littering. And where did they start? They started young. They started with the young people saying, why are we doing this? Why are we throwing garbage out the window? There's no need for that. And this is the same thing. I mean, when they first started Safe Station and people were talking about getting up to the 500s, that's nothing. I want to get up to the 2500s because I know that's the problem we have.
You gotta get
and I'm
everybody
guessing
coming
it's
in.
more than 2500. So
Now, Pat, when you talk about prevention, though, you run into the problem. I mean, we put all this money into the DARE program. Nancy Reagan had this just say no cockamamie idea that would work. Prevention has been a real tricky subject.
Right.
Have there been advances, or are we are we looking at the same old programs that really haven't had the best track record?
No, we're not looking at the same programs. It's keeping people engaged. Talking to to Jesse, I'm not even sure if he's a pastor or not, but talking to him, he just got it right on. He says we got to look for something they're interested in, and when they're interested in something, we don't give it to them. He says I'm going to invite them to practice and record in my studio. I got a small studio at home. I'm going to get them these teenagers to practice and record in my studio. I'm not going to tell them you practice and when you're ready you come see me. No, these are the hoops you got to jump through to be able to get a recording. And they're interested in getting a recording, so they're going to jump through any hoops. They're going to stay engaged.
So it's goal oriented.
It's goal oriented.
And with a process so that you can keep your hands on them through the process, keep an eye on things.
And they're interested in it. They're interested
they
in it
come
enough
back
that they're going to do
voluntarily.
whatever it takes to get that recording. And that's the same programs we need to set up for this prevention. Keep them engaged.
So, Pat, here's a couple things. Fascinating discussion, guys, and glad you guys care so passionately about this horrible issue. I was in D.C. this weekend, and people came up to me and informed me that New Hampshire is still number one in the whole country in the severity of the problem we face. And number two, I've talked to a couple of guys that are, doing the Safe Station program, and I'm beginning concerned about a little compassion fatigue setting in. They see so many people again and again, and they want to help, and they are helping. They're not going to give up. But there's a real problem there, isn't there, Pat?
There is. The budget 2 years ago, I put $70,000 for a LADAC person. I couldn't get the votes to get a LADAC person. At
What
the
is
very
that?
least,
What
it's a LADAC is a licensed alcohol and
Drug abuse
LADAC,
counselor.
licensed alcohol and drug counselor. So I wanted to get a LADAC in there because I know that if I'm Narcaning people every day, if I'm seeing accidents where, people are bleeding, just with this drug emergency, I'm seeing, they're seeing people at their worst, people that are dead and they're reviving. That can't be normal day in and day out.
Oh, yeah.
Or even five
How do
times
you
a
deal
week.
with that?
How do you go home to your wife and kids without, and with this running through your head? I'd be scared to death. So it has to have an effect. It has to have an effect on our police and on our fire department. So I wanted this 70 to get a LADAC to set up whatever needed to be set up. Talk to our employees, the first responders, find out what it is that we need to get them counseling to get through this. Because I'm thinking that it's an overkill.
It's a workplace safety issue, actually.
No, absolutely.
It's part of that.
When you're 30 years old or 40 years old and you're seeing this day in and day out, it has to take a toll on you.
It has to take a toll.
It just has to.
Yeah.
I don't believe any of our employees are that cold-hearted where it brushes them off.
Yeah.
So
But they're getting burned out.
So Manchester can and will overcome this emergency. They can and will overcome this emergency.
Yeah.
But we have to take drastic measures. We have to take risks. Now we're not experts.
And continue it on into the future so it doesn't come back. If
No,
it's
exactly.
heroin, my
Exactly.
God, that was, I thought that was done in the 60s. I was
that's
shocked
right.
to see it come back
That's right.
like that.
So we have the enforcement going well. We have Granite Hammer. But once again, in that industry, you put out somebody, that's just an opportunity for somebody else to step in. So as far as the substance use disorder person, give them the help. That's the only way you're gonna get this.
Cut the demand.
It's supply
Somehow we
and
gotta
demand.
cut the
It's about
demand.
supply and demand. That's
Yeah.
right. So
Pat, we're being told it's time for a break, and I know you have short time with us because you have another obligation tonight, and we'd like you to sing us a song because
I got to save my voice for tonight.
save your voice for tonight. But I want to give you a chance to talk a little bit about the campaign you're in this year, and anything you'd like to say about that, because we know you've demonstrated again you're passionate about this horrible problem we have in the city and the state. It's, you know,
Yeah.
and Manchester gets so much of the notoriety because we're the largest city in the
Well,
state.
we're a collector as well. I mean,
And we're
people-
a collector.
That's right.
People know we have some services here that they may not have in little podunk somewhere out, you know. out
Safe
in-
Station services 131 communities in New Hampshire. I'm not even counting the out-of-state communities. I'm just counting New
And that's
Hampshire
the people,
communities,
where you
131.
from? I'm from Danville.
Come
Where
on,
you
state,
from?
it's about time
So
you
that's about
pony
half.
up.
That's about half of the
State, you got to
municipalities
pony
we
up
have
with
in
us.
Hampshire.
You know, we
Yeah.
you know, they this per capita money that's spread per capita, give us 15% and didn't spread it per capita. Give us 15% more
Yeah, yeah.
because we're taking care of 131 communities.
Yeah. So, want to say anything about your campaign and what's coming up?
I'm going door to door. You know, I'm hearing of your typical education opiate. In Ward 3, though, there's a couple of other issues that I was aware of in some areas, but it's in more areas, and that's lighting. You know, there are some areas that are just dark. I knew 4 areas that was trying to get lighting. Lighting is $30,000 each, so you got to convince 9 other people that to put that money in that. I'm hoping that other areas of the city.
But this is
will
the
need
heart of our
lighting.
city, the downtown you're talking about.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah, the inner city mostly. Yeah,
Yeah.
the inner city. So that's been a major. It's been very positive going door to door. I enjoy it. It's an
I'm sure you
opportunity. I grab any opportunity I could take to talk with constituents. I do neighborhood meetings when somebody calls me for an issue. I have them gather their neighbors and we all meet. That way there I could bring police, I could bring planning, whatever the issue is, I could bring them to the table. That's been going very successful. I'm currently cleaning up some of the Valley Street. My wife and I go volunteer our time over there, cleaning up the
with the
Valley Street
cemetery?
Cemetery.
No kidding.
That's fun. There's nothing like getting to know people more than when you're sweating with them. And the same with one of the neighborhoods at a street cleaning. Street cleaning. I've done that. There was a block party, and they wanted somebody to man a Ask Your Alderman booth. I'll do it. It was in the city, and I was amazed at how many people came to ask questions. I was
Wonderful.
like, this is fantastic. So I know on my campaign, I have an issue with the 3-minute speech before the meetings.
Mm-hmm.
You're like in a courtroom setting. It's kind of intimidating. We don't answer any questions, no matter
Yeah.
how simple the
Make
question
that a
is.
little more interactive.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Make that more interactive. You
Yeah.
know? And that could be controlled. You
Yeah.
you don't necessarily need
You have somebody
somebody,
at
to
the
dominate
podium
it
who
for a
can,
half
you
hour.
know,
That's right. We'll take a
control
question.
things.
Here's your answer.
Yeah.
Who's next? You know?
Okay.
Make
Beautiful.
more. So, Manchester is unique. I'm finding out through this volunteering. I mean, there are a ton of people who want to give.
Yeah.
You know, a ton of people.
It's remarkable.
you know what?
If they all took one day off, this city would come to a complete halt, in my opinion.
It's amazing
the
what's done out there.
volunteers that are
yeah.
getting
What's
this.
done out there voluntarily.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just with that, I have full confidence that whatever issue is facing us, like this opiate crisis,
We'll get it.
we'll get over it.
But we got a
We will get
ways to
over
go.
it. We do have a ways to go.
Keep
It's-
waiting for this wave to crest. It doesn't seem to have crested yet,
It will. We're getting there.
but we will.
We're getting
I'm
there,
sure
and we will.
And
So-
it'll be because of people like you, sir.
I will give my all. I'll tell you
You
that
certainly
much.
do.
I will give my all.
Every day that you're serving the city is a day we get benefits from your activities, and
Thank
I
you, Bob.
appreciate that very much.
Thank you.
And I know you have to go.
I
and
do.
I'm glad you
Thanks
could come
again.
on short notice.
November 7th, everybody get out to vote.
November 7th.
It's coming quick.
Where do people? You know, at the
Ryan Center.
Ryan Center,
Yep.
Ward 3. Here's
Very
our
good.
alderman representing
Thank you,
downtown.
guys.
Thank you, Pat.
Take
Thanks for
care.
coming up.
All right, folks, it's time for our
Take a quick break.
and we'll be right back with another excellent former and maybe future public servant, Betsy DeVries from Ward 8. And it's been terrific to have Pat Long here. What a great, passionate, concerned citizen he is. He gets a lot done. He's talked about the opioid, but he's done so much more for this city in his years of service. So it's great to have him with us. Okay, we'll be right back.
See you in a few seconds.
So we're back. This is the segment number 2 of the progress report for this Wednesday. It's always Wednesday at 7 p.m. here on Channel 23 MCTV, and it has been that for many years.
Almost 8 years.
Almost
We're
8
in
years.
our 8th year.
Wince.
I'm going to say it again, Bob. I found a recording of an old show, and we've gotten old on this show. We look a lot sharper in that recording than we do on this one. And I just heard, folks, I don't know if you can tell, but we've got brand new high definition cameras. That's the last thing I wanted to hear about. So, anyway, showing on all the wrinkles and everything else, but I'm glad I shaved today anyway.
Oh my! Well, we are featuring 2 outstanding candidates for office here in our municipal elections coming up in this show. You've just heard Alderman Pat Long, who is just a terrific public servant and passionate about things. We didn't have to prompt him at all.
And we have another one on
We
deck.
have another one right here with us right now, and that's Betsy DeVries. Now, Betsy has many accomplishments in her life, and we won't get to all of them, and I probably don't even know all of them, but she has been an alderman. She has been a state senator, and a very great accomplishments in both these roles. She has been away from public life for a while because of health issues in her family, but those are stabilized, and they don't involve her personally, but they are stabilized, and so she's running again for alderman in Ward 8, your home ward, Mike.
And I couldn't be happier to
And
see that she's
we
on
could
the
not
road
be
back.
happier that she's back, because her heart is in the right place. Her values are good, and
Not to mention, she did a great job as an alderman in Ward 8 for 10 years. There's just a really good track record that you can look back at and say, yeah, I want more of that.
yeah. So there we are.
It's not a hard thing to
I'm just going
decide.
to sit here and listen.
No,
It's great.
you got to talk.
Yeah.
You got to sell yourself. We're not going to do it all. You got to sell yourself. So, what got you back in the political race, and what are you doing, and what is your plan or reason to want to be back?
Yeah, well, as you said, 6 years ago, I had made that decision that I needed to take a break and focus elsewhere. My head, if you would, was not in the game. I needed to pay
Oh,
attention
that's
to
understandable. You have a
I needed
family
to pay
member,
attention to my husband's illness at the time, and so I took a break, and we all got healthy, and Ward 8 is a very diverse and wonderful ward. And we have homes.
great Ward 8. It's a
we
great
have
place to live.
Yeah, we have starter homes, and we have high-end homes. We have recreational areas, and
A lot of schools.
a lot of schools.
lot of businesses.
7 schools, just in Ward 8 alone.
All public schools?
All public schools.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Okay.
2 high schools, 2 middle schools.
Wow. So you're back in.
So I'm back. I'd like to say it's by popular demand. A lot of people did reach out to me and ask if I would run for office once again. I think that many people knew that I was very strong with constituent service. That's probably one of the most important things that you do as alderman,
I bet.
is to be there working on behalf of your constituency, and I truly enjoy it. I'm a people person, I guess one would say, but I truly enjoy the outreach and the interaction with my constituency. Over the years, I was involved in with 10 years, even actually before, was listening to some of the inner city cleanups, the street cleanups and stuff, and I was involved in that kind of stuff even when I was still on the fire department, or getting the firefighters out there with their brooms. They must have loved me. But
And I want to mention, Bob didn't mention it in his intro, but you hold the distinction of being the first and currently the only female firefighter in the history of the city of Manchester.
From Manchester, yes.
You're
Yep.
a pathfinder.
Yep. Blazing the trail.
Well, and speaking of trails, you also we talk a little bit about the work you did
The
on
rails
with
to
the
trails.
rail trail system that has really blossomed in Manchester. And I walk those trails, and there's traffic of pedestrian traffic on them. It's a great thing.
So,
Which
so
trails you got in Ward 8?
The rails trails, well, they
Potential.
actually, they dance all around Ward 8, but
Yep.
the one that is probably the closest is going up through
Nuts
to
Pond.
Nuts Pond area,
yeah,
right, running
yeah,
parallel to South Willow.
Yeah.
And we hope to continue that right over the trestle and into Perimeter Road area.
Yeah,
You know, the
And then to
rails,
make the connection to the riverfront down by Sundial Avenue there,
That's right.
there's a work, it's only, you can see the two
and out
connect
around
pieces of change.
Massabesic Lake. And there are many areas that we want to connect, and we want to connect onto the I-93 corridor. There's a bike trail coming up from Salem that we convinced them when they were doing the mitigation for the I-93 project to come in, to veer off of I-93 and to bring it up through Manchester. The last I heard, they were considering the stub to be right on the other side of the airport because they want to feed, of course, the future industrial parks that likely will go in Londonderry. But no, Rails to Trails, it started as a pipe dream, and it's been entertaining, because resurrecting some of my old campaign literature and listening to the old programs that I was on when I was first running for office, and that is right out of the gate what I was interested in. I had been visiting in Florida and saw around Fort Lauderdale the great, I think they've been gobbled up now to runways, but at the time they had great greenways, they call them, all around the airport. And it's like Manchester, south end of Manchester in particular, needs that. We don't have the infrastructure of sidewalks. So it's really was tough to be a walkable neighborhood, a walkable south end. So we needed to do something different, and we couldn't do it all with city dollars constructing sidewalks. So the Rails Trails was something that was brought to my attention as an opportunity because we had the abandoned rail beds there. A gentleman out of Ward 9, John St. Hilaire, that I have maintained a correspondence, if not a friendship, with over the years, and he was involved in one of the early bike groups, and he educated me, and I got to be the champion, if you would, on the early board of mayor and aldermen when I kept advocating, let's get involved, let's figure out a way to put a rail in. The very first one was the one running parallel to South Willow Street there.
Oh, yeah.
And we were looking for ways to do it with minimal input of city dollars, a lot of volunteer efforts, a lot of the engineering, etc. Then the monies became available to expand on that project. So it's really been fun to see it started there.
And there's been
then
success.
after everybody started to say this is great, it built out from there. So now I hope to come back into office and finish what I started, and to get some connectivity between all of the future rail trails.
Oh, I'm
When-
so excited to hear that, because this is something I feel very passionate about, is
A walkable city.
a walkable city, a bikeable
Yep.
city, and a
Yep.
walkable city. I enjoy using the Piscataquag Rail Trail a lot, which becomes the Goffstown Trail.
It does.
And, with the bike share program, that's just something more you can use to have a good time and
I haven't been on that yet.
Oh, really?
But and for me, it's all about connecting the dots, but making sure that every time there is a project that is already funded by somebody other than city dollars, that we maximize the opportunity. A quick, for instance, would be the Ray Wazorek Bridge that is going over South Manchester into Merrimack. And when it was built initially, there were no plans to have any kind of a pedestrian crossing or a bike crossing.
Really?
And right on the other side, there's another rail trail.
Yeah.
So I was able to intervene early enough in that project and say, wait a minute, the trail is not there today. It will be.
It will.
Eventually, you'll see every greenway.
Yeah, but it's a lot cheaper to build that
to
when
build
you're
it on a
starting
bridge
the
now,
construction than when
exactly.
you have to add it on later.
So we've got the pedestrian crossing there, and it's fabulous.
And we have a
Thinking for the
wonderful-
future.
a wonderful opportunity here in the city, because we had the rail line, which we hope someday will again be passenger rail from Lowell to Nashua to Manchester, but then there was the Lawrence to Manchester line, of which part is now the trail you've been mentioning right behind, parallel to South Willow Street.
And the Rockingham
Yeah.
line.
You can, and
And
the
that's a wide
Rockingham
ri-
line
that's a
to go
wide
to the
right-of-way
coast.
through there,
So you can go
too.
to the coast, you can go to Well,
And that's getting closer and closer to being a unified trail, that
Oh, yeah.
Rockingham line. They're actually doing a lot of work out in the coast, and it's almost there.
oh, it's going to be
Yeah.
wonderful.
It's
gonna be
funny, because
wonderful.
you were asking me before we went on the air today, some of my favorite projects, and it got me thinking about all of the things that you do that I don't always remember, but the new fields at Memorial High School.
Yeah.
I was
That's
able,
right.
we got that started, we were able to renovate, we got the track in there, and the football field got renovated.
Yeah.
We did a minor patch on the baseball soccer fields.
Not so minor. That's
out along
turned
Weston,
out
and
to be
we
a good
have-
improvement.
We have a third area.
third
that
phase,
was, a
yep.
third phase that never has been completed, that would have brought a lot of the girls' programs down so that they
That
can
stuff
be
was
right
promised
there.
back in the '60s, and it did take a spark when you were the alderman
Yeah.
to get that moving, because that was always, we always had the track and something of a football gridiron,
Yeah.
but we didn't have a true high school stadium like they have there now.
All about
you know.
pride for the South End.
Oh, you know it.
Those things make a big difference
they
in
sure
people's
do.
lives.
They sure
really
do.
Well, you obviously have passion for our city, and particularly you're a part of it, but I'm sure for the city as a whole. What are some of the other things that you're interested in promoting if you become a member of the Aldermanic Board again?
Well, sure. It's funny because right now, as I knock on doors, and I've knocked on a lot of doors already across the south end of Manchester, a lot of the concerns that Alderman Long, who was here before me, deals with in the downtown area haven't permeated, and I hope they don't, into the south end of Manchester. But we need to make sure that we have the police presence there, that they're seen and taking every opportunity. And while they're there, maybe patrolling some of our streets for speeding, which is probably the number one complaint that I hear about as I knock on doors. And there are areas of Ward 8 that really are having some problems trying to control traffic. South end of Brown Ave is one in particular, Goss Falls Road. They're really having difficulty maintaining that neighborhood that they all grew up in, or they had become familiar with when they first bought their homes.
No, I mean, speaking of that, the work that was done on Jobin Drive, talk
All
about
the traffic
mitigating some
calmings,
speeding.
yeah, I'd forgotten about that one.
That was a major accomplishment. It took a long time, took a lot of discussion.
Yeah.
It works.
Yeah.
I don't know if you've heard it knocking on doors, but from my experience, I live only a few blocks from there. It's nothing like the racetrack that it used to be. People
it
drive
used to
down
be.
that road like it's a normal neighborhood street, like they should. And
I found the imprinted sidewalk, which just gives you the change of pavement enough to make it feel like you're in a neighborhood, not on a racetrack. And it does work. It doesn't work. The bump outs work also. And they don't get in the way of the plows like some of the speed bumps do. People would always prefer the speed bumps, but they make
not
a
me.
mess.
They
They make a mess of your undercarriage. And
I am so against speed bumps. I wish that they would take them out down in the mill yard. Anywhere there are speed bumps, they should be
Yeah.
removed. That's my position,
and you're sticking to it.
and I'm sticking to it. But
We have a new project down in the south end that's been rather controversial, and that's one that I think everybody anticipated eventually the land was going to get
You're referring to
purchased
Lucas
and
Road?
built. I'm referring to Lucas Road. It's a project that actually I opposed when I was an alderman previously, and we were able to stop the construction of the apartments at even a higher density than what was proposed this time. If I have, it's unfortunate that we couldn't have had a lower density project go in there. Because that is a prime, we saved, I'd have to say one of the things I fought hard for and I'm rather proud of is we saved the springs for Crystal Lake.
Oh, yeah.
With the I-93
Yep.
mitigation
Oh, yeah,
dollars.
yeah, that's a good
And
achievement.
I'm always looking for ways to find somebody other than Manchester taxpayers' dollars to do something for Ward 8 or the city. There's a lot of federal grants and federal programs.
as small as
but-
Crystal Lake is, it has a storied history, and it is a very important part of the South
It
End.
is.
Well, it's
It
our
is.
only sort of public beach on a lake in the city, isn't it?
It is,
Yeah,
our
I
only
think it is,
swimmable
yeah.
body of
Only
water that we
swimmable
have in the
water
city.
Where there's a
we have in the
beach, yeah.
city.
Yep.
And it has a classic CCC bathhouse from the New Deal, which is
Yeah, which needs
kind
to
of a
be
gem.
renovated. Maybe that'll be one of my upcoming projects.
It'll be
but
one of your upcoming
that would-
projects.
You know, it's really getting harder and harder to find federal dollars, state dollars to do
Oh, yeah,
things. And
yeah.
as an alderman, I think that you have to look at your needs and your wants.
Yeah.
For the needs, you know, you have public safety, you have education. Those are the needs that we have for Manchester
Yeah.
that have to be taken care of.
Absolutely.
The kids are our future. We have to educate them
Yeah.
as best we can.
Well,
And
our
there's always-
city's future depends on our public schools
It
not
does.
only being good, but being perceived to be good. Otherwise, we're going to see young families
Yeah.
go to Bedford or
And our
wherever.
property values depend on the schools being
Yeah,
good, too.
yeah.
If you've tried to sell a house recently, you know, the stigma that I think is not deserved, but the stigma that
Yep.
Manchester has picked up is making it harder and harder to sell some homes for their proper sale price
Let
in
me ask you, I'd
Manchester.
like you to talk for a few seconds about the relationship between the Board of Mayor and Aldermen and the Board of School Committee. I personally think that it is not functioning at its highest and best effort. And I just, with that negative opinion that I'm coming with, what's your opinion on
Thanks,
how
Mike. So,
the two boards should
My
work?
recollections aren't current, because I haven't really been part of the Aldermanic Board for 6 years.
I'm thinking more philosophically where you're coming from. how you
Philosophically,
think that-
you know, I have no desire to micromanage the school board or their decisions. I think the aldermen, to do your job properly, you have a full-time job all unto yourself, and I want to take on aldermen with that level of gusto. That being said, I think that the camaraderie needs to be there. There needs to, Manchester, if we're going to do things within the confines of a tax cap, we need to do things differently. And the only way that is going to happen is if we get smart about our funding, and that we don't all look like we have something to protect. You know, that we have to get a certain level of funding. So that requires you know, that you, without feeling that somebody's going to take advantage of you, can have that intelligent conversation and say, this is what we have, this is what we need, and these are our wants. People get protective of it. But there are also things with the schools that I have heard as I've gone around knocking and talking with some of the other candidates. Hooksett may still have some level of interest of sending some, and they'll probably make it voluntary, but maybe some of their students would like to come back to Manchester.
That would be a great thing.
And that would be a great thing, because that would certainly help us funding it with the schools.
Yeah.
And that sends a message
Yeah.
about that Manchester can be a place where you want to send your kids, even if you don't have to. You know what I mean? I think that would be a
Good
very
point.
important message.
Good
And I think
point.
that the multi-generational connection between Central High and Hooksett, and so many people in Hooksett are Central High graduates, I can understand very clearly why a parent might want to send his kid to Central. You know.
My oldest grandchild just started playing football for Central.
Oh, really?
I had to put that in there. He's
And
pretty
well
proud
done.
of it.
That's a great
freshman.
thing, except he's not playing for Memorial. But
I
other than that, it's a
know,
great thing.
I know. But he does go to the Tech. He's just attached to Central. So, I think what I have heard from Hooksett is that they would entertain Manchester as much, because it's a very long day for their students. As pretty as
That's a
Pinkerton is,
long day to
it's
drive
a long
down to
haul to
Pinkerton
get there if they have
And
after
come
school
back, and you know
activities
you're leaving
and come
in the
back.
dark,
so.
or when the daylight saving comes.
It doesn't
you're
work so
coming
well
back
for
in the
everybody.
dark, and it's
Yep.
a problem. Yeah, yeah.
So I hope that we start to look at some of the other boundaries. When I was alderman before, I actually had proposed, and we applied for a federal grant to share a fire station with Hooksett.
Yeah, I remember that.
Do you remember that?
I do remember that.
And,
That was what
They
Hackett
did,
Hill.
Yeah.
they did not.
Up
they
on
did
Hackett
not-
Hill, because
they
it-
did not
within
go
8
along with
tenths
that,
of-
and so we have our own fire station there.
we didn't get the grant. We
Oh,
didn't
is
get
that
the
what it
grant
was?
to assist with it. And then, you know, there's always these protective boundaries
Yeah.
that people put up. And it's like, wait a minute, who's going to do what? And we need to get past that. We need to get past it. You know, Litchfield, we don't need, the fire stations have both been built within a mile of each other up on Hackett Hill. But we have Litchfield.
Yeah.
Litchfield has a north end that is screaming, and Manchester has a south end that
The Panhandle.
the Panhandle that goes down. It's a long haul
Mm-hmm.
from Station 9 to protect those homes. And we really do need to do something. We've talked about moving. I know Chief Burkish had spoken about moving a station to a different location. So I say, let's reach out once again. Let's see if there's a collaboration
Yeah.
to be made. This is how we're going to do things and stay within the constraint of a tax cap.
You know,
Think smarter.
I'm sure you were listening, we had quite a conversation about Pat Long, and he was certainly passionate about the opioid crisis.
Yeah.
Much of the effort as a first line response has fallen on our firefighters. You got any thoughts on that?
Well, you started to speak about it, and the compassion fatigue is definitely there, and it's there from all levels of first responders, including the ambulance. I'm not going to tell you that I am a czar that has answers for, there is definitely a policy piece that the state needs to enact on the health side to help to give the beds for people who want to get healthy, to move them into beds quickly. But we have started to take on the workload. I think, Mike, you mentioned it. We're taking on the workload of a lot of the other communities of the state. It's kind of like welfare was.
Yep.
Way back when I was I was on the ambulances down in Nashua. They used to joke about how they sent welfare cases up to Manchester. It really happened. Well, I think there's a little of that going on now. We're picking up the bill for it, and it needs to happen. It's I'm glad that they are offering people who want to get healthy a way to get into a bed in a program. So that they can detox. I'm glad that is happening, but we need to get the monies, because if they fail, they come out, they tend to stay in Manchester, or so I've heard a number of them do. They now become a little bit more of a problem in Manchester. So we need some help. We need some help funding this.
Where do you think that help should come from?
Well, I think it has to come quickly from the state. I'd say Pat Long had some thoughts on that, and he's involved in the state budget, but no, Governor
Well, that
Sununu
gets
needs to
us right
step
to
up with
the
us.
biggest thing we got facing us in the state this year, reauthorizing Medicaid expansion, because those funds are a big part of what we're going to
They
do to
sure
respond
are.
to the opioid
They're
crisis.
funding the beds.
It's a critical issue. We could devote a whole show to that, and I'm sure we will as we come
gonna
up.
be a
That's the
firefight when
biggest
that
issue
comes up.
coming up, because it's a very heavy lift this time, but we got to get it done. We have got to get it done, folks. 50,000 New Hampshire citizens depend on Medicaid expansion for their access to health care, and it's providing much of the funding to address the horrible and ongoing and yet not diminishing public health crisis we have with the opioid addiction situation, and really, really appalling. But
And that also migrates into our schools, where they have to deal with the children that on a daily basis are underperforming because of
And our schools
yeah?
are so
situational
challenged.
issues with
Right.
drugs.
right,
with
right,
with
right.
with the immigrant and refugee community.
already challenged.
We have as everywhere, we have an underprivileged community as far as financial circumstances. Our schools are very, very challenged, and
Yeah.
to add this layer on top of it.
Yeah.
While all the while, in my humble opinion, not providing the kind of education funding that a city like this ought to be providing, I think it's really putting a burden on the education
Yeah,
of
it's
the
a-
people that are doing it.
It's a fight every day, isn't it? And we got a good fighter here in Betsy
True enough.
DeVries, a great fighter. She's been a fighter all her life, firefighter in particular, but generally a fighter. And would you like to turn a little bit to the campaign situation? I don't know what your campaign's like, or who your opponent is, or how you're going to get back. I certainly hope you
Her
do.
opponent is nobody.
Okay.
He's
Don't
a
even have-
Is
newcomer,
that
I
spelled
really-
with a capital or small M?
Yeah. No, he's a newcomer. I don't know.
No
too much
personal
about him.
offense meant. I shouldn't have even said
Yeah.
that.
But
That seems like
talk
a
a little
nice
bit
person.
about your campaign and what you're doing, and what it looks like going forward for the next month.
Well, anybody that knows anything about me, they know that I always run very nervous during a campaign.
Yep.
I will always do what people tell me I need to do, which when you're running a campaign, number one is always door knocking.
That's right.
I've
I
knocked
agree.
on tons of doors already, and I'm almost done. I can see the light at the end of the road for the
Unless you
number of
decide to go
neighborhoods
through and
left.
do it a second time.
Thank you. I might.
Hadn't
If I
thought
have
of
some
that,
time left. There's always key neighborhoods to go back there. I haven't been around my own house very much yet, so I need to spend some time there. But
Yeah.
they see me out walking my dogs all the time.
Okay.
Yeah, I rescue white shepherds, so
Oh.
so they're very easy to spot, and people, my neighbors, have often told me that I am populating the south end of Manchester with white German shepherds.
Do you campaign with them?
I haven't yet. They're not that well behaved, and there's enough people that aren't comfortable
everybody's
around
a-
a large
Not
dog.
everybody's a dog lover,
Or-
although
or-
I think an
or enough-
overwhelming majority of New Hampshire, Manchester residents are dog lovers.
Yeah.
I do
I
believe
can,
that.
I can see the interaction at the door might not be so smooth, though. Might be really hard to get a few words in with them.
Well, we certainly wish you well. You got
Thank
anything
you.
else you'd like to talk about before we let you go? Any other issues that you're interested in talking about, or
Oh,
reasons to serve, or I mean, it's not a requirement. I'm just asking for
Yeah, we've got a couple more minutes in the segment. We could.
if you want to say anything else about
so,
it.
well, you know, it's South Manchester hasn't seen a lot of the problems that, and I said this already, but the biggest thing that we can do for South Manchester, in my opinion, is to keep the neighborhood watch group strong. A lot of emphasis on community policing, where neighbors are looking out for neighbors, to keep the aldermen in touch with the neighborhoods. You know, if I was known for one thing, it was that you could reach me and I would work on your behalf.
Constituent service.
Our constituent service. Our problems maybe aren't as difficult as something that they would have to face here in the South End, but they are they're everything for the South End of Manchester. When I was knocking on a door last night, they reminded me about some things that I had done right along Hughes Road. One Christmas, they decided they were going to open up the backside of the Mall of New Hampshire and let traffic sneak in that way.
Oh, yeah.
And one of the neighbors reminded me, you know, people have probably forgotten that you shut that down immediately, because you have to,
I don't
because
think
traffic
anybody's
was traffic backed up for miles because everybody figured out very quickly.
Not to
there was a
mention, it was
shortcut.
such a strict promise that the mall made when they built that mall that would
would
never
stay
happen.
closed. It
That
was
would
there for
only
emergency
be
access.
for fire trucks.
Yeah, right.
And
right.
when they went back on that, that was it didn't last long, and people do remember that one. I don't think people are forgetting that. You know, my experience in Ward 8 is, you know, there's a little, you know, bunch of neighborhoods within the ward, but people do know their neighbors. Many of them, there are a lot of newcomers in some of the new developments, but some of these established neighborhoods, people have been there their whole lives, and their kids live down around the corner in the same neighborhood.
There's a lot of outreach, I think, within the neighborhoods too. So when you have a new family move in, I think they get assimilated very quickly into the neighborhood. It is very unique, I believe, South Manchester. Very open.
Sounds
giving
like a pretty
people.
nice place,
It's a
actually.
great place to live. I'll tell you, it's a hidden gem in
It is.
Manchester.
It's big.
It's
Territorially,
large.
as far as
from
trying
the
to walk
Merrimack-
that.
from the Merrimack River in Litchfield all the way down to
Silly Road.
South
and-
Willow Street, Silly Road, over to I-93. So,
Yeah.
like I said, we encompass
You adverted to the big housing project down on Lucas,
Lucas Road.
and you said you oppose that. Are you still opposing it in its current form or not?
I did. I actually had done some outreach, but unfortunately, I guess I don't yet have the juice to have
No, the
convinced
aldermen
all of my
approved the,
aldermen.
the zoning change.
They did
But
approve the zoning change. So
The
now
good news is that it's
it
scaled back.
reduced the density.
So the
It'll be a
density will
nicer
smaller,
project.
and the buffer is increased a little bit. All traffic will be diverted off to Mammoth Road. No guarantee what they'll do when they get out there, but there are some mitigating.
It's always hard.
circumstances.
It's always hard because there are very few pockets left in Manchester where there is a lot of wildlife.
Yeah. And that happens to be one of them.
And that happened
happens to be
to
one.
have been one of them, where there's
Yeah.
still fisher cats and there's still bears and there's still deer and
Yeah.
lots of coyotes come through, or you know, it's
Kind of
pretty
a neat
amazing
place.
what we catch on, because we have game cameras up around our gardens to see who's nibbling on our gardens, and we catch a lot of unique critters that decide to come through. I'm not sure if we'll see that after the Lucas Road development,
Okay.
so it is a little sad.
Well, thank you very much for joining us, Betsy. We're glad you could join us, and we're glad you're seeking to become a public official again.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm
I think
thrilled
you
to be
served
running
the
Couldn't
again.
city
speak higher. I
and
think
the,
everyone in Ward 8 should
and
get
the-
out there
and
and
the
vote for
state
Betsy.
very effectively when you were prior in office as a senator and an alderman. We're glad you're back and that the health situation in your family permits you to serve the public
Thank you.
again.
Thank you, Bob.
So that's really great. We're just about at the end here, folks. Any final thoughts? Your progress report was so brief today.
I know,
You had
There
a
was so
POTUS.
much to go on.
And there really is. I will ask forgiveness. I was on vacation, we'll come back stronger next time. But hey, it is certainly a situation. We have two people, one of whom is President of the United States and the other one who has such integrity. Boy,
Who's the one that has the most integrity?
I would give Rex Tillerson.
Oh, you're going further than I would. As far as I'm concerned, he's an ExxonMobil CEO. I'm not going to give him. But compared to Trump,
Too
yeah.
bad we don't have more time to talk about that.
Compared
but I'm
to
not
Trump,
too far off from
he's
that.
a giant of integrity and intellect.
But the point I
No
wanted to
doubt
make, though,
about
is there has been a steady drip. We had Senator Corker. We're hearing more and more people feeling freer and freer to state
Yeah,
their
I wish some that weren't resigning would do it.
opinion.
I was in D.C. Oh, it's time to close. I got to close, but I did spend D.C. This weekend at an amazing conference called the Sixth Conference, State Innovation Exchange, which is the antidote to ALEC, which is the the Koch brothers funded people that offer model legislation to suppress votes and things like that. Very inspiring, folks, and I'm sure that I will be glad to tell you about that the next time we're on set here and maybe get some comments. Folks, we would hope next time we'll get some calls and participation, but we hope you've enjoyed this show. We've had two great, strong candidates on, both prior or current office holders. So it's been a real pleasure to welcome Pat Long and Betsy DeVries. And we'll see you next week with another